Welcome to brand new edition of the Huddle House. Uh, with Ty once again, like always. Unfortunately, guys, I tried. I did my best. I got a few people, texted a few people, did everything I could, but we couldn't get a guest on this week. But we needed to knock it out this week. I think we're both fairly busy, but we got to get you guys an episode. So, you know, show goes on. So, how you doing, Ty?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. It was a great Thanksgiving week. Weren't able to work out a time to get anything up over the holidays with everybody moving and shaking, but glad we can get back into our rhythm this week, and hopefully down the stretch of the season here we can have some guests on and keep it going through the playoffs. I think that would be fun. So that's where we're at, but it was an eventful week this week. I've been fighting a smile back all day because my team's in sixth place now. We jumped into the playoff picture, and we'll see what happens down the stretch. But man, feels good to be in this spot. I'll say that.
You gonna get Carter a Christmas present early after the favor he did you this week.
Yeah, beating Brandon there was big, and Brandon's 6-6, still a very dangerous team. I mean, he's just kind of been on the short end of some bad weeks, and he's boomed a lot and he's busted a lot. He hasn't really found a baseline with his team yet. So still as dangerous as ever, and he's certainly not out of the picture, even though he's in the 8th spot right now. We have a lot of people that are kind of all stacked up together there. So it sounds like your mic's not working there, Matt. I can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, you're back in now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's saying your connection's a little unstable, but it might be my end. I don't know. We're going through a thunderstorm right now, so I think that might be affecting things. So you guys are gonna have to bear with us. Um,
Well,
but
anyway,
yeah, no,
I was just talking about jumping into the 6th spot and how Brandon's team is still very much dangerous, even though he's at 6-6. The roughest thing now is that he just doesn't control his own destiny. But all he needs is a slip up from somebody above him, and if he wins out and a couple people lose out, he could certainly jump in that spot. So, how about you? Just talk to me about your week and your feeling right now.
um, I was playing Chris this week, so I mean, Chris actually had a decent week for kind of what he's kind of become accustomed to. So I mean, his team actually had some nice performances, but overall, I wasn't super worried I was going to lose throughout the entire week. I was kind of like, especially when Schultz got me 17 on Thursday on Thanksgiving. I was like, all right, that's a pretty good start. So I just kind of like was pretty feeling pretty good that I was going to get a win this week and keep things rolling. Overall, though, my team didn't really perform that well. I mean, 108 is okay, but it's by no means a exceptional week, and had a couple guys just kind of lay duds. So I'm still trying to kind of figure out if my team is actually good enough to win with my flex spot being Paris Campbell at the moment. It was going to be James Robinson, but he was a healthy scratch this week. So it's with Cooper Cup, being out. I'm looking at Paris Campbell, Caleb Huntley, or Robert Tunyon as my second flex spot, which is pretty rough. So I'm kind of a little top heavy with the current roster construction, hoping that they can kind of carry me to victories. But that's definitely a problem I'll fix in the draft. But in regards to this postseason, I think that's the big concern.
Yeah, I feel you there. And I guess for me, the concern is kind of back to what it has been all season in the quarterback spot, because I had to watch Aaron Rodgers just struggle to put up 9 points and put me in a hole in a game that I really shouldn't have been in a hole in. If he has an average game on that Sunday night, him and Lazard both stunk, and it allowed Jeremy to jump out to a 15-point lead on me. Thankfully, we took care of that, and Jonathan Taylor managed it the next night. But dang, man, I mean, I'm back to this balance now that if Fields doesn't come back, I got to start either limping Aaron Rodgers, who's hurt, or Jared Goff, who's leading the Lions and is probably tops out at 17 points. So like I'm back to just my head is just I can stand up and hit the ceiling of my quarterback position. Like it's terrible, man. I mean, I got no upside there if I don't have Fields, and I don't know what they're going to do with him. Honestly, I can see them shutting him down until after the bye and letting him rest up. That's 3 weeks out. I could see him shutting him down the whole season. I could see him coming back to play this week. So I'm very anxious to see the practice reports there. But
Yeah.
that's my general feeling. All in all, I'm happy to be in the 6th spot. Don't know if it's going to last, but man, it feels good to be there right now.
Yeah. No, I think you have a real
I might be losing you again here, Matt. I'm not hearing you.
order, and I mean, but in that week, Jordan doesn't have Alvin Kamara or Aaron Jones or Jarvis Landry or Cordero. Like he has like 4 buys and is
Mhm.
only projected like 50 points. So Jordan, I mean, unless he, was able to win next week, he's probably losing out. So I don't think Jordan's a major threat at this point. So you're really looking at mostly Brandon in your way, you know?
Well, the feeling is the thing that feels good is that we control our own destiny at least. I mean, because Jordan's the only other 7-5 team, and I have him outscored by nearly 200 points. So
Yeah.
like as long even if we both win, I'm still going to have it over him. The main concern would be if I drop one of these and he wins, obviously, or if I drop one of these, he loses, but Brandon wins. Our points for I have him beat by 5 right now, but I definitely think his team has much higher upside for, like I said, those 150 weeks right now. So that's really my biggest concern. I agree with you on that. But that's the feeling, man. We control our own destiny. So like it's out in front of us, and that's a very good spot to be. We'll see what happens, but let's dive into this week a little bit and go through some of the action and some of the scores we saw from some of these games of importance.
Yeah. For sure. So, yeah, we kind of both talked about our own, but so James gets another win over Mitri. Nothing too crazy there.
Should be
Oh,
noted, Mitri hung 92 points. That might be a high for him this season.
I know, and him and Chris are in a gridlock for who's going to get that. The Bijan Robinson sweepstakes. It's going to be an interesting storyline to follow.
Pacheco,
Austin.
Pacheco put up 15 points, paying off on that investment a little bit here down the stretch for him. And Zay Jones, what a nice little find that is. A good spot start there for him in the flex. But just on James's side, that James Conner deal looked nice. I mean, that 2nd-round pick he gave up immediately contributed, and that looks like that's a key part of the Cardinals' game plan down the stretch as they run out this season, literally, because they suck. I think he's got a good investment there. May have lost McCaffrey to some time though. He got banged up a little bit.
Yeah, he did. But at the same time, if he's not banged up super bad, Elijah Mitchell's out for the rest of the season. So if anything, I mean, obviously you hope McCaffrey comes back soon, but if he does, it should just be him and hopefully my guy Debo Samuel kind of splitting carries there.
I was kind of thinking Tyrion Davis Price actually.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that guy's sniffing the NFL field on any team.
Ah, careful there.
Nah,
I think he's next man up if CMC doesn't go.
they're just gonna give Debo 20 carries.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But James, the story with him is just an unreal amount of depth. I mean, some of it's been fortunate. Like, I mean, Rashad White kind of getting bumped up into a role with Lenny being kind of banged up all year, but it's also just been some good strategic pickups. Um, that's just kind of helped him throughout the season and just making good trades. So he's just got a lot of different options there.
Yeah.
The tough part about having a lot of options, though, is sometimes you can kind of confuse yourself on who to start, and then if you pick the wrong guy, then you just feel even worse. Like I was like most efficient manager this week because I literally have nothing on my bench. Like it's like I'm having to like scramble to even fill the roster because I got a lot of stars, but I don't have the depth that someone like James has. So
Yeah. Yeah. I hear what you're saying there. Sometimes too much depth can be a painful thing, but it's good in his case because he just hoards those backup running backs, and you never know when one of them will be a good spot start. And it's worked out for him a few times this year.
yeah, let's move on to I think I want to talk about my favorite matchup of the week, I think, and that is my good buddy Marcus just burying Jake's dreams.
Okay, go on. Elaborate on that.
No, I'm just kidding. That was a little mean, but no, Jake's done. Uh Jake had a tough situation with Brian Robinson having a great week on his bench, and then he starts Gibson who puts up 7, that would have been 12 extra points there.
Mm.
Still would have lost, but it would have made it fairly close. And then,
He had a
um,
lot of ways. I'm looking at his bench. He had a lot of ways to win this game. DeAndre
yeah,
Carter with 16, Adam Thielen with 16, Brian Robinson with 19. Heck, even Latavius Murray with 10. I mean, he had a lot of people he could have slotted into that. I mean, obviously, you're not starting those guys over Mike Evans, and Josh Palmer made more sense. So I don't think he made any bad decisions, but it does just sting.
yeah,
That's a
I know.
corner. That's a corner he backed himself in with the Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson backfield.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's not like Marcus's team really did anything exceptional other than JJ just doing what JJ does. But I mean, and Lamar kind of at the end of that game sort of rallied, put up a decent performance, but no one really went like super crazy for him. He finally got production from his kicker and defense. I feel like that's been a common issue for him all season. But they both did well. But
Yeah, I mean that was the reason he won this game. He got a goose from Higbee, and then didn't have Mostert there down the for that game because he got hurt. That tight end spot, which was looking really sweet with Higbee, is really kind of hit a stopping point, just as the Rams have. But Hunter Henry did have a solid game on his bench. Maybe that's somebody he can throw in there occasionally because I don't know. That's a tough balance there, as is tight end pretty much across the league. So yeah, just he made it happen again. Marcus has been doing this all season, and he's the 2 seed, so he's right behind James there with a 9-3 record. James has him by over 100 points, so James is definitely the front runner for that 1 seed. It's going to be hard for him to drop that unless he loses and one of these 8-4s wins in a massive blowout. He's certainly the front runner, and he's on a 7-game winning streak, man. Like what? He was 2-3 at a certain point in time.
yeah, yeah, James has been red hot.
Think about how comfortably he goes to bed every night. Has to. Either that or not as comfortably because he's really anxious about these pickups and everything. Because he's on it to the second, man. He is on it to the second. Like he nabbed up Mike White, and that seems like a smart move now after how well he played.
Yeah. And how's that bad Zach Wilson's been? So
Yeah. Okay, so there's that one. That wasn't the most. Oh, we just talked about Marcus and Jake. Yeah, Jake looks to be done there at 6-6 in that 10 spot. Going to be tough for him to overcome that. Needs a lot of help, probably that he's not going to get. 10-6 would be a crazy jump.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he has no path. I mean, even if he wins out, I mean, look at his points for compared to everybody else. That might be potentially 8-6. I mean, we're assuming either you or Jordan wins one of your last 2 games. So that would get you 2 to 8 wins, and you guys both have points for over him. Well, no, Jordan doesn't, but you do by a very healthy margin. So, and so does Brandon. So it's like he doesn't have the way to get the tiebreaker on anybody. Even if he had to put up like 200-point weeks back to back. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really much of a path for him to win the tiebreaker over anybody, even if he wins out. So
Yeah.
there, he's kind of out.
But Marcus looks firmly. I mean, he's firmly in. It's just a matter of what seed he's going to be. Let's jump down to Lucas versus Jordan because what a game that was, man. Another week of 150 plus or 140 plus for Lucas. Man, his team's coming on like a house of fire, and it's just so unfortunate for him that fortunate for me, unfortunate for him that we played each other that week. We were both 5-5 or whatever it was that I put up 170 and beat him out because man, he might have been in this 6th spot if not for that. Oh well, maybe not, but yeah, he could have been. He would have been in this 6th spot if he'd have won that game. So that's rough.
Yeah, it's a huge turning point. Him losing that absolute slugfest last week. I mean, he didn't do anything to lose that game. He just ran into the hottest team that week. But Lucas's team has really came on. I mean, Jalen Hurts has been great. Josh Jacobs is an absolute revelation.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, never knew where that came from. but I mean, T. Higgins had a really nice week. Chris Godwin, 12 catches, beautiful. So he's got, I mean, and he's got all these picks on top of this roster he already has. So Lucas is definitely building something that I think we all are a little nervous about for
Mhm.
our future in this league, because he's going to have a roster, that's for sure.
Yeah. But here he edges off, well, not edges off, he blows out Jordan, who drops his fourth straight. Jordan was 7-1 at one point. Now he's out of the playoff picture.
Yeah.
And
Um,
it's come on the wings of some bad injury luck, losing Hollywood Brown, Jerry Jeudy for as long as he did. We lost Jarvis Landry for some time. Kamara's been struggling. Kyler's been hurt. So it really has just been, his team was very fortunate to be 7-1. And I feel like that shift from up here is like evening back out now, whereas luck and regression has kind of hit him like a ton of bricks, where he was just killing it to start the season.
yeah, for sure. Definitely a huge stray of bad luck, but I think yeah. I mean, there's not much you can do about it, but I still think his team had just kind of gotten a lot of really great matchups in the right weeks and kind of eked out a few wins that he probably easily could have lost by a point or two. That's fantasy football. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but like I think even early on, I think a lot of us were kind of like, is Jordan's team actually legit, or is he just kind of on a hot streak? And I think he's kind of regressed back to I think what a lot of us kind of thought his team was going into the season. I mean, it wasn't too long ago before the season even started where Jordan's pick was being clamored over as much as Mitri's or Chris's. It was like everyone was thinking he was bottom three.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he comes out and he's first in the league for a few weeks. And it's just kind of like everyone's like, what the heck is up with Jordan's team? But I think his team has kind of become what I think a lot of us thought it was,
Yeah.
kind of before the season started. Um, but that's fantasy football. So
And losing Zach Ertz was an irreplaceable blow, honestly, to his team. Zach was having a really good year, and then he's replaced him with Cameron Brate, who's kind of been a non-factor. So he had a lot of investment in the Arizona Cardinals, and they've pretty much all gotten hurt at different points, whether it's Hollywood, Zach Ertz, or Kyler Murray. So his season is certainly, he's still very much in this. Wins out, he could certainly be in the playoffs, especially if I lose one of these last couple weeks. But he's at the point where he does need help. And no, I don't think anybody necessarily thought it would get to that point when he was 7-1. I mean, we saw a track it could have happened, but it's like if you start 7-1, man, that's pretty hard pressed not to make it, unless you lose 4 straight like he's managed to do. So we'll see what happens there, but that's definitely something to monitor there in the 7 spot currently. Carter and Brandon, this is one we got to talk about. Brandon,
yeah.
the reigning champ, slides down to the 8th spot with a 6-6 record, and is going to need some help to clinch a spot in the playoffs. Who would have seen this coming at the start of the year?
I know, and he was on a 3-game losing streak.
3 straight. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this is after what he does at the deadline, trading for Dalvin Cook with me. Getting an upgrade at his second flex spot to really just try to go and solidify another championship. And I mean, when I made this trade, I wasn't thinking like it was quite as big of a deal as the Mixon and Diggs last year for CD and Dobbins, but I still felt like it was kind of a sort of similar in like being a move that puts him over the top a little bit to kind of, edge everybody out with how good ETN's been, Mixon, Dalvin, still having good receivers. I was like, it's like I'm probably giving Brandon, the front runner seat to the championship again. And now it's like, man, it just hasn't helped him. I mean, Dalvin didn't do much this week, only 7.6.
Mm-hmm.
Ian getting hurt really killed him. That was, only having the point 0.3. It's just really hard to come back from that
Yeah.
at one of your core positions. But another thing to note is Carter's defense and kicker put up 27 combined, and Brandon's put up 3.
Yep. That'll swing a game. That'll swing a game. And I think, Brandon's team, these 3 games he's lost, he's been hit with injuries hard, man. Like he's been without Jamar Chase these 3 weeks, who's been a top player. And he was without Joe Mixon this past week. And he got good production filling in with Samaj P. Ryan. It was nice he had him to slot in. But still, I think that we can't overlook that as a loss. These 3 losses have all come when Jamar Chase has been injured and out of his lineup. I think that we maybe didn't realize how much weight that carried, especially knowing he shipped off Pittman, his other wide receiver, to bring in Dalvin. So I think just, all things considered, that's a tough spot to fall to. And I know that it's got to be painful to be needing that help. He certainly could still get it. His team can put up a lot of points. He's going to get Jamar and Joe back this week. So it's very possible he wins out. Hope would just be for him that it's, not too little too late. Yeah, I wonder, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think he would do? Do you think he would take the T. Higgins trade back he made with Lucas if he could, where he got Pittman in the 108 or whatever it was, 109 for T. Higgins? Do you think he'd take that back if he could? Because he essentially turned that pick. I think he turned that pick into Kadarius Toney, and then he turned Pittman into Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. So Dalvin and Tony for T.
For T at the end of the day. That's what
I mean, I don't know if it was me and I was shipping off Dalvin, which I did a few weeks ago, I would have easily thrown in Kadarius Toney on top of Dalvin to go get T. Higgins any day of the week. So yeah, I mean, I think he comes out on the losing end of that.
Yeah, and I think that was a move that everybody was kind of championing him for and kind of questioning Lucas on. And that's just, I mean, we've seen it countless times. You just never know how these trades are going to work out. And you know what? The pendulum very much could swing. He could get some crazy back-to-back weeks from Dalvin here and go on a run, make the playoffs, win the championship again. And that whole conversation would kind of be a moot point. So, but just looking at it, given what's happened to his wide receiver room a little bit, it does make you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, Carter got some really good production from, like you said, his special teams. And now he's going to be getting this guy back in his roster who's officially activated. So we'll see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I play this week. It's a big matchup for us.
Yeah, he's nice and loose after a lot of massages,
Well, we don't know anymore. I mean, he could have. It's been a while, probably, since he's been in a massage parlor. I would think, unless he's having dudes massage him now or something. Maybe that's what we have to do. Either way, I don't know if we should be talking about it, but it just doesn't seem like it's. It'll be talked about a lot this week. I'm very interested to see what he looks like when he gets back into the action. I wonder how much they're going to let him do. I mean, there really couldn't be a softer pillow to come out and land on here than the Houston Texans. So, I mean.
Yeah. Well, and it's his former team. I mean, it's almost like poetry, It's like.
What if the Texans come out and just stomp them? Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be so fun. I would love that. I would love nothing more.
Yeah, they're gonna sack him, and they're gonna whoever sacks him on the defensive line is gonna do some crazy celebration. Maybe what if one of the Texans players sacks him and then has his buddy come over and massage his back or something like that.
Oh,
He's good at a shoulder massage. Oh my gosh,
he's amazing. He's gonna be tormented for that for the rest of his career, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's gonna get trash thrown out of him or thrown at him in away games probably for the next year or so, and when he's walking out of the tunnel,
Oh, he'll hear chants. It'll follow him forever, I'm sure. Whatever the case. I mean, anyhow, we'll see what happens with Carter's team. 4-8 this year. He's playing for the future. Let's go over to another team playing for the future, Austin, who hangs 132 and upsets Caleb, bumps him from the 1 seed. Caleb 8-4 slides all the way to 5. That's a big drop. Maybe Caleb wasn't the 1 seed. I don't remember if he was or not before this week, but a big time win for Austin. May have jeopardized his draft position. He does play, I believe it's Mitri this week, and that'll probably crystallize what exactly it's going to look like. But yeah, man, this was the Austin that we saw all of last year. It finally came back. He had Elijah Moore in there who caught 2 touchdowns. AJ Dillon got in the end zone. Keenan Allen looked good. Amon-Ra St. Brown played well. Herbert was awesome. This was what his team did all the way last year. They carried him to the championship, and they just had not been able to do it at all this year until this week.
Yeah, it's so weird too, because like the only guy on his team that's been good all season really has been Damian Pierce, and
Yeah.
he didn't do anything this week. But all the OG guys that were like got into the championship all just snapped back to form. It was like, yeah, definitely like a little time capsule moment. Austin's probably sitting on his couch just thinking like, where were you guys? Like,
Yeah, I know.
you
What
know,
do you think that feels like? I mean, I think this is an encouraging sign because like this is what he did last year. So I mean, the ship could very well right next year and this record could be flipped, especially knowing he's going to have a top 3 talent adding to it in the draft.
yeah, for sure. Um, he's really not missing much. He's got his quarterback. He's got a couple young, inconsistent running backs, but they're both very talented with
Mhm.
Najee and Pierce. Both are showing a lot of flashes. Monroe St. Brown, I think most people still view as a top, 8 or 9 dynasty receiver. He's pretty good. Mark Andrews, top 2 tight end. Like he's got a lot he's working with here.
Well, and he gets Calvin Ridley back next year too on the Jags. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's a
So
lot of pieces there. It'll be very interesting to see what he does in the draft, but I do think he's in a position where he's got a lot of good core pieces that aren't that old. I think Keenan Allen's probably the oldest guy on his team. Like his starting lineup is young. So just a weird year. But he's a manager who doesn't overreact. I don't know if he's ever made a trade. So I mean,
yeah, it's impossible for him to overreact because the
yeah.
only way you'd overreact is by actually doing something to your roster.
So he
Um,
very much stays the course and I think the ship can right next year, but this was a flash of what he was and what he can be moving forward. So I think that overall, you got to be encouraged if you're him. And if it's Caleb, you just had a down week, but you probably weren't going to win anyway with a guy hanging 132 on you. So, I mean, might be a wash at the end of the day. But just to talk about his team, we saw Tony Pollard come back down to earth. Tua kind of had a pedestrian game because they absolutely massacred the Texans and they
well,
didn't
they
need.
took him out in like early in the third quarter,
Yeah,
so
like they were winning 30-0 at halftime. It was over. Um, so that also affects Jalen Waddle and Jaceki, obviously. He got another banger from Christian Watson, man. Christian Watson's been the hottest receiver in the league lately. Wide receiver 2, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 8, and he scored 6 touchdowns in 3 weeks. That is madness. Madness.
yeah. Overall, it's a tough week for him. I mean, I'm honestly very glad. Nothing against Caleb at all, but I mean, I have his pick, and I didn't want him to get a bye because I was like, then he's guaranteed to be a bottom 4 pick because he gets advanced around. So as long as he's in that 3 through 6 range, then there's always the potential he loses round 1. My pick ends up being 9 or 10 from him. I kind of have to root against Caleb, sort of. So like. I'm kind of nice seeing him. He wasn't that top 2, and now he's like back in there with the rest of us. And I'm like, all right, as long as he stays in that course, I'm fine with him making the playoffs. But like, just want to make sure he's not in that top 2. So kind
I
of
thought
helping me out a little bit.
I thought you would have been talking just because of seeding that you jumped him.
No, I don't really care about that, to be honest. I mean, I'd like to have a buy, obviously, but if I'm not in the buy, I really don't care if I'm 3 through 6. I mean, it's not like you get a points advantage. It's the same, to me, it doesn't make a difference. I think
Who
the teams in the three
who
through
gets
six are all
buys?
very similar in talent.
First 2 seeds get buys?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So that's an advantage, obviously, but if I'm in the 3 through 6 range, I don't really care which spot it is, honestly. I mean, like I said, Austin was a 6 seed last year. It didn't affect him at all. You
Yeah,
know, you're
yeah.
playing a team that's going to be good if you're in the 6 spot playing the 3. If you're in the 3 spot playing the 6, you're still playing a good team. So it doesn't really make a huge difference. I mean, the 6 seed right now, you has 25 more points scored this year than the 3 seed. So I mean, it's not like the team is way worse. It's just the spot you're in based on how the schedule's played out. So I
Yeah.
mean, I just don't really care what seed I'm in, other unless it's top 2. The goal is to get in top 2. If I'm not in that, I don't really care.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean
That about sums us up for last week, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. It
Let's
does.
jump let's jump ahead to week 13 here and just go through the games real fast. We have a few minutes left here. And we
Yeah.
can briefly touch on these matchups. I think the biggest one, I'm just going to start us off with it, is Marcus and Brandon.
Mhm.
Because Marcus wants that first round bye or just a higher seed. I don't know if you really care. I mean, I guess you would. I mean, you surely want the first round bye. You get to skip a week in the playoffs. You're 1 week closer to winning a championship. Like, duh, you want that. But Brandon has to have it to stay alive. So I think that has major, major implications. You and Caleb play each other. That's another seeding game. Plus, you have his picks, and that factors into it. Jordan and Jeremy play each other. Another big game as Jordan trying to keep these hopes alive. Jeremy playing for seeding. And then as far as the other teams in the playoff race go, I play Carter, looking to just keep myself in the sixth spot, and then James plays Lucas, who's been white hot and trying to hold down that 1 seed. So I think that as long as this season has felt and as much as we've been through, there is still so much shakeup that can go on. Like, we know the 7 or 8 teams that it could be, the 8 teams that it could be, but like, we don't know exactly what the order is going to be like in the end, or who the odd men out are at this point. Like, this week will really, I think, give us a better picture of what things are going to look like. And it'll just leave it to where there's no doubt about the implications of last week of the season.
Yeah, I think this season's had more of a log jam than last year because I think yeah, a couple weeks ago I think I went back and kind of rewatched part of like one of our episodes last year around the playoff time just for like memory lane, and I remember us kind of talking about how there was really 7 teams in contention. It was you and Austin kind of playing for it, playing for that last spot. The
Remember,
ace at that point was kind of irrelevant going into the last 2 weeks of the season, and then at the top, if I'm not mistaken, the top 2 seeds were fairly obvious, I think with a week or 2 left in the season, who those were probably going to be getting the buys. And so it felt kind of like there might be some movement in the seeds, but not that much. I think it was fairly clear who was in, who
yeah,
was out.
I think it was. I think mine and Austin's was the only win and in game. I think it was the only one.
Yeah. But now you have like 8 teams. Really, I mean,
I mean,
honestly, none of
Lucas
these
isn't
teams
out of it.
are possible. Lucas is not out of it.
No,
I
Lucas
mean,
isn't out of it.
he'd have to have some big performances again, obviously, and win both of his remaining games, but he's not out of it. So there's really 9 teams that can make it.
Yeah.
Um, and there's really any of those top 5 teams, I'd say, and the seeds are still capable of getting a bye. So
Yeah.
it's
Because literally 2 games, like, I'm looking at it now. 9-3 is leading, 7-5 is in last place. Like, 2 games separate one from the 6th seed. Like, it's a tight race, man. There's some great parity in the league this year.
yeah,
Great parity.
it's good for the league. It's good for it's healthy, so it's just gonna come down to who gets hottest come playoff time. And right now, uh it's been James. James has been on a 7-game win streak. You can't get hotter than that. But
Yeah.
your team's been building something, 3 wins in a row, really just finding his footing. Um Lucas obviously is finding his footing. Might be a little too late for him possibly, but we'll see. Um and I think my team's just been kind of consistently decent. I haven't really had too many weeks where I've been like sub 100, but I also have only had like 1 or 2 weeks where I've been over 130. So it's kind of like I'm always around that 105 to 120 range, which if I catch someone on a mediocre week, I'm gonna win all of those. But if I run into one of those buzz saws, I don't think my team has the top heavy power to give me a 160 week without Cup. With Cup, maybe, but without him, I think my flexes are too weak to really give myself the upside to have that type of week.
Yeah, you never know when it can come though. I think what's really helped me too on this little 3 win streak is the rookie receivers I have are finally kind of like emerging and breaking out a little bit. Pickens has been making big plays every week. Traylon's had a couple good games back to back. So yeah, that's been a nice boost and it's lessened the blow of losing Debo.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing too around the league, whether it's Christian Watson, like these rookies are rounding into form, man. Rashad White, So you see these guys starting to come on hot. Even Sky Moore's had some solid moments, other than muffing punt after punt. So I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of good stuff from these young players, and it's that time of the season, so that's all exciting.
Hmm. For sure. So let's go ahead and pick our winners real quick. I'm not gonna pick against myself in regards to Caleb, so it's gonna be a close one, but I'm gonna take myself.
Hmm.
Where would you in there?
Yeah, let me just gaze at it real quick.
You only have 3 minutes, so
Yeah, I know. Gosh, I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Remains to be seen what will happen with that Jets backfield if they're going to give James Robinson that use. I think that'd be a huge bump for you in that flex spot. Um, I think I lean you in this one. I just like the steadiness of your running backs up top, and I'd have more faith in Patty to have a good game against us than Tua against San Fran. So I'll go you.
okay, cool. I appreciate it. Now Lucas and James.
Yeah, this one's also I feel like has some firepower potential. A lot of good matchups down the board there for Lucas. And Christian McCaffrey might be banged up.
Yeah, I
Um,
picked Lucas in this one. I already made my predictions on my notes app.
I think I'm gonna go Lucas too, man, because he's got great matchups. He's got a lot of hot streak going right now. And James has 7 in a row, man. I think he's due for an L at some point. So I'm
Yeah,
picking.
we gotta move quicker. We got a minute 40. Brandon Marcus, this is the swing, the huge matchup. I gotta go Brandon. He's got better matchups.
I'm going Brandon as well here. I think he's due for, same thing as James. He's due for a dub here pretty soon. 3 in a row losing.
Yeah. You and Carter, I picked you.
Yeah, not going to
Need
pick myself. Don't have much confidence though. We'll see what happens. Need Fields.
I think you'll be fine. I like what you got going. Jeremy and Jordan, it's gotta be Jeremy here. Jordan's still so banged up.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah. Jake and Chris. Would love it to be Chris, but I mean,
Oh man, are we going to be in agreement the whole way down the board? I feel like we are.
yeah, I think we're gonna have to. Because then the last one is Austin and Mitri, and uh, I don't think any of us believe in Mitri here, do we?
I don't know, man. I mean, he did hang 92 the other week. But Austin's team has juicy matchups. I
Oh,
think
but
he's
he's
going to
not with Green.
I think he's going to finish out strong down the stretch here and play himself into the number 3 pick, but that's not a bad thing. I'm taking him here as well.
Wow, we agreed on all of them.
Yeah, that sucks. I hate that. That definitely means some upset is happening here. We should not have agreed down the board there.
You can just go and pick Caleb. I won't be mad at you.
I do think your guys is the closest one. I would not be surprised to see that either way. Really,
Yeah,
any of these.
yeah.
James certainly is capable of beating.
We gotta go. I'll see you guys. Have a good one.